Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another Writer's Showcase. I am Lord Captain Commander Dunn. I am very happy to welcome you all. This is going to be a slightly shorter one since we only have a couple guests. So, what my thought is if we go for probably about an hour. Uh, what we're going to do is for the last 30 minutes, we'll just have a Q&A with you guys. That's my plan. I'm hoping that you'll be able to have a fun time. Welcome, Occupation Army. First off, let me welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, and allow me to welcome. Becoming better. Welcome aboard.
Howdy.
Okay. So, so my thought was today that what we're going to do is the order in which we're going to do things is Neff, then me, then Brent Discord, since he's kind of working through stuff, and today we don't really have to worry that much about times.
I may be able to go before you. I'm wrapping up the last sentence or two.
Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah. So then, Neff, are you ready?
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure how much of it I'm gonna read.
Just take as much time as you want. We have like an hour and a half half-ish.
Yeah, and there's only 3 of us, but I still don't want to take too long. I'm afraid that I might end up reading everything that I have currently. Okay, so I will be continuing on from when I was reading not right. Sorry. Okay, I will be continuing to read what I read from last week. I believe it was that I first started reading Chapter 1 of Fundamental Feelings. That was last week, wasn't it? It wasn't the week before?
I think so.
Okay, so bit of setup because I'm skipping part of it. The 2 of the main characters have gotten out of the town of beginnings, and they've arrived at Haruka Village, which is where one of them is going to be taking a quest. Well, both of them, but Okay, so they've arrived at Haruka Village. You need a moment? Asuna asked as he bent over, panting. She had an amused smile on her face, but he ignored it. Note to self, Kirito noted. Trying to wear someone down to the point you outpace yourself works as well virtually as it does against my sister. I pushed myself a little too hard, he managed. Trying to impress the lady, Kirito slowly looked up. Copal! Words cannot express how little shit I give to see you today. Asuna, Copal. He kept trying to match my solo player record in the beta. Copal, Asuna. She's with me. Copal actually took a step back, raising his hands. Hey, man, I'm just here to ask for help on a little quest, Asuna-san. Do you prefer Copal or Cooper? Asuna asked, and Kirito quietly applauded her. Her tone was cool and polite. Trust was earned. Either is fine, Copal assured her. So, how about it, Kirika? If Kayaba isn't spouting BS, then this is a death game. I could use a hand. Kirito met his fellow beta tester's eyes, and something deep inside cried, bullshit. Maybe it was the fact he never liked the guy. Maybe it was the fact that he was worried about Asuna, and maybe even his other students getting wrapped up in it. Maybe it was that he detested the overfamiliar way the asshole was calling him Kirika. But Kopel lived and died for Kopel, and Kirito figured that was the only person who should be at risk for Kopel. Details? Asuna prompted. Good girl. If you'll details first, Asuna clarified. Sorry, but this is my first real-time gaming, and it being a death game and all, I'd like to make sure I'm up to it. And I don't want to waste Kirito-sensei's time. Oh, sweet lord, this girl was entering the same class as Ruby. Could he handle 2 rubies? No, he really didn't think he could. He really didn't think so. Still, he would indeed enjoy watching Asuna take people like Kopel down, the same way he enjoyed watching Ruby do it. Kopel, Kirito spoke up, am I to assume you want help with the secret medicine of the forest quest? Kirito growled. Kopel let out a manly squeak that had Kirito smirking on the inside. Yes? Kopel asked more than stated. Have you activated the quest yet? Kirito continued to question his fellow beta tester with narrowed eyes. No, I haven't, Kopel quickly denied, waving his hands comically in front of him. I was waiting for you to get here, actually. Kirito didn't believe a word. Back in the town of beginnings, you were looking for me? How do you do that with your voice, Argo? Ruby wondered for the umpteenth time, and for the umpteenth to the power of umpteenth time, Argo just smiled. 5 million core, Ruby 10. Argo said jokingly. You know I can't afford that, Ruby pouted theatrically. Why do you think I price it so high? Argo grinned. Ruby rolled her eyes. Fine, she muttered with a sigh, giving up for the moment. You know why I came to find you, she said bluntly. I do? Argo agreed. Though I do not know why you aren't out with Kiba, since you always preferred to work with him to the rest of us. It is as Kayaba said, Ruby said, her eyes downcast. We only have one life in this game. Ruby looked into Argo's eyes. I would rather not die out there, and besides, she tried her best to smile, though it probably came out as more of a grimace. I feel that I can be of most help trying to bring the morale of the rest of the players back up to what it should be. Her world was deadly, and its beauty had been twisted into something almost unrecognizable by her father. But Ruby still wanted the players to be that were supposed to be in her care to be able to see her beautiful world the way she herself saw it. If only she had more access to her own systems. Ruby knew that she was supposed to be the goddess, not just some troubleshooter. Argo was right about one thing. Ruby did want to be out there in the wild with Kirito. It would have been so much easier for her, but no. The well-being of every single player was her responsibility, and it was one Ruby had every intention of taking seriously. So, Argo, what do you think we should do? Ruby asked, putting those thoughts firmly out of her mind so that she could concentrate on whatever task lay ahead of her. A guidebook would probably be the best thing to hand out, Argo replied after a long moment of thought. Ruby rubbed her chin. Yes, that's probably the best thing to do, she agreed slowly. That way, we can help without holding anyone's hand. I'll take care of that then, Rubita, Argo said with a smile. What are you going to do? I own several bars in the beta, Ruby said, blinking. I could do that again, once open the bars for those who need it. Argo nodded. Will you allow me to use them as offices again, Rubita? Ruby rolled her eyes. Yes, Argo. Coca, Ruby smiled up at him. Thank you so much for helping me to buy the first bar on this floor. It was nothing, Ruby said. Koshin replied with a small smile. Rubita, Argo said with a larger grin than Ruby thought the information broker should have. Yes, Argo, Ruby asked, turning to look at Argo with a nervous smile. I have the perfect name for the bar. If anything, Argo's grin got larger. Ruby turned to the beta tester, her eyes half lidded. And what name would that be, Argo? She wondered with a curiosity that wasn't entirely fake. Cheers, of course. Argo's grin was as large as Ruby had ever seen it. You know, Argo, Ruby said slowly, your smile is so big that you've almost convinced me that you are not afraid of our situation. Ruby smiled. She knew the truth, but she appreciated Argo's efforts. She would let Argo keep her dignity by not calling the information broker out. Koshin snorted, adjusting his glasses. Besides, no one but the three of us would get the joke. It airs on the Nick at Night International stream. How many people watch that in Japan? Point, Argo allowed. But that does prompt the question. What are you going to call it, Ruby-san? Koshin asked. Ruby turned back to Koshin with a thoughtful expression on her face. In Haranka village, Kirito almost sighed tiredly as he stood between Asuna and Kopel, listening to the NPC explain the objective of the quest. If there are still flowering little Tempest, he said, once the NPC stopped speaking, the three of us will find them. And with that, his quest log updated. He led Asuna and Kopel out of the house after the NPC thanked them and sent them on their way. I've never known you to take charge like that, Kirito, Kopel said. Kirito could feel his eyebrow twitching. I wonder if I could goad Kopel into a full strike duel, he mused before pushing the thought away. Asuna, he said just loud enough for the girl to hear. Yes, Kirito-sensei? Asuna asked, shifting so that she was walking just in front of him and a little to the left, since Kopel was behind them and to the right. What is it? She kept her eyes on the dirt road before them. Keep an eye on Kopel, Kirito replied. There's only one person Kopel looks out for, and that is himself. I don't want anything to happen to you because of him. I understand, Sensei. Asuna agreed softly. I'll keep an eye on him. Her eyes narrowed. Good. In the forest dungeon, Asuna thrust her iron rapier through one of the little nepetes, causing it to shatter like glass. If these are the little ones, I don't want to ever see the large ones, she said as Kirito landed behind her. I've seen them. They are worse than these, Kirito told her. Great, Asuna muttered. How low is the spawn rate of the mob we're looking for? She asked, turning to look at Kirito. I would estimate that the spawn rate would be around 1%, Kirito shrugged. Not all fetch quests are like this one. 1%, Asuna repeated numbly. Yes, 1%, Kirito confirmed. Why? Asuna prompted. Kirito shrugged again. I don't know why, he replied. There were many reasons why the spawn rate was set at 1%, and they were too numerous to list. This anneal blade had better be worth all the effort we're going through to get it, Sensei, Asuna said quietly, her expression and tone serious. It is, Asuna, Kirito reassured her. There are weapons to be found on the first floor that can be used for several floors, provided you take care of them properly. The anneal blade happens to be the best of the one-handed swords to be found on the first floor. Do you know what the other best weapons are? Asuna went on to ask, since the area had been temporarily cleared of mobs. Not off the top of my head, Kirito shook his head. But I would be able to identify them all if they were put in front of me. Still trying to impress Asuna-san, Kirika, Kopel asked with a smug smirk on as he sidled up to them both. Asuna pinched the bridge of her nose. Must resist challenging Kopel to that full strike duel, Kirito reminded himself. Dying was rather permanent now, and if it were not for the fact that Kopel would actually die should his health reach 0, Kirito would have gladly challenged the other beta tester simply to teach Kopel a lesson. There was a reason why Kirito was the highest ranking beta tester. But since players died when they were killed, Kirito and Asuna would have to put up with the annoying ass. So, Kopel, see any flowering little Nepenthes yet? Kirito asked Kopel pointedly, moving the direction away from feelings that may or may not be developing. Kopel shook his head. Not quite yet, he said with a nervous laugh as he rubbed at the back of his neck. Well, that's not really surprising. We only just got started, Asuna pointed out. If the spawn rate is really as low as you estimate it to be, Sensei, she continued, turning back to Kirito, then the longer we are out here, the higher the odds that one of the flowering Nepenthes will appear. Kirito nodded. We just have to be patient, he agreed with his student. Ready to start again? He asked, hearing the sound of a mob spawning. Back in the town of beginnings, Ruby looked between her two beta tester friends as she thought about what she was going to call her chain of bars. Not cheers. As Coca had said, no one else would get it. So, what else would she call her bar? No. So, what else could she call her bar? Was there a theme she could use? If there was, then what kind of theme? Still deep in thought, Ruby sat down on the edge of the fountain the three of them had been standing by and happened to see her reflection in the water. The blonde girl that stared back at her from the surface of the water looked as scared as Ruby felt, her ruby eyes staring back as if making eye contact. Wait, that was it? Ruby turned back to her friends. Hoshu. Hoshu? Argo asked, blinking as the word was suddenly thrown out of nowhere. Gem? Ruby-san, Koshin asked after a moment of thought. Argo turned to look at Koshin for a moment before her eyes fell back on Ruby. It suits you, Ruby-san, she said. Ruby smiled. And I think I'm going to stop there.
Are you intending to complete like a novel out of this, or is it just kind of a writing exercise?
I want to complete a novel of it. Yes.
Is that what's the word?
It's a fanfic.
Well, no, I'm saying, can you sell it though, since it's based off a pre-existing property? Monetize, that was the word.
If I was living in Japan, then maybe, because they allow for the making of Dojin. And if I lived in Japan, I'd be able to show this to Kawahara and maybe get him to greenlight an anime of it or something. It'd be a spin-off of SAO. Just like Gun Gale Online is.
Neat.
Yeah. But unfortunately for me, I say that as if it's actually unfortunate.
International copyright law's a bitch.
Yeah. Unfortunately. If I wanted to, I could probably change all the names. Maybe keep a few because they're original characters. But if I wanted to actually publish this as a book, I'd have to change the majority of the names.
Schmord, Schmart, Schmonline.
Huh? What?
I said you could call it Schmord, Schmart on Schmonline.
Maybe.
Original character Donut Steel.
Yeah.
By the way, is my voice finally less groggy today? It still feels groggy to me, but I looked back at the streams earlier and it's like, oh my gosh, I sound like I have a frog in my throat.
No, you sound fine.
Yeah, you sound fine.
Boo, boo, boo. All right, so I suppose I can go next.
Yep.
Go ahead.
All right. So this is going to be a carryover from the discussion that I had, or not the discussion, the thing about which I wrote last week, that being plot threads and narrative in a highly interactive environment. This one will be an extension of that being theming in a highly interactive environment. So before I talk about how to construct theming in a highly interactive environment, it's probably worth discussing how I view theming in general. So actions in a narrative only take place because the characters are making them, and the impact is only observable in how it affects other characters or that character themselves and the environment. Consistency in the rules set forth with regards to these characters and their environments are what make up the foundation of a narrative, that being the plot. The makeup of these rules can be referred to as character motives, since the consistency with which the character acts with regards to other characters is defined by the mind of the character that makes that action. Now I'm getting the frog in my throat again. Once this foundation has been laid, the structure of events that take place are formed as an outcropping of the actions taken by characters, which derive consistency from from clearly defined motivations. When the actions of one character cross with those of another or the environment, conflict occurs. The ideas that are given rise in the presence of conflict can be called themes, which are given clarity by motifs. Now I'll discuss how this structure is modified for implementation in highly interactive environments. These are additional considerations that one must keep in mind when constructing the plot with considerations I discussed last week. The primary conflicts are founded upon the environment in which the narrative takes place. Since we discussed last week, once the interactivity begins, the GM only has control of the effect portion of cause and effect of the narrative, else railroading occurs. However, the GM is almost entirely in control of the cause and effect before the interactivity is introduced, with the exception of character backstory. Thus, the environment in which the narrative takes place must be as finely tuned to convey the central themes of the narrative as possible, while keeping in mind the narrative contract that they made with the player. Character creation is also considered an interactive element. Thus, as much liberty as possible should be given in that interaction to allow the player to more fully define and gain interest in the motivations of their character or characters. One cannot, or rather should not, be interested in controlling the actions of a player's character or characters. However, since the themes are an outcropping of the conflict, the elements that the GM can control are the motivations and actions of the characters and environment with which the players are interacting. consistency and attention to detail in such areas will allow the GM to have motifs naturally come about, since these are the elements with which the player and player characters will inherently be interacting. What perspective the player characters have on this conflict is ultimately not up to the GM, since the player character motivations, the player character motivations nor the resulting character actions are up to the GM. The intersections at which the player and non-player characters can be seen, the intersections at which a player and non-player actions occur can be seen as a river over which the players must cross or can cross, and the manner in which they cross or whether they choose to cross at all is defined by their motivations. The conflict has still been established and with consistency a motif, but players' agency is never violated in the application of plot and thematic structure. This is in stark contrast to the traditional means of interactive narrative delivery, that being the beads on a string methodology, wherein the player's primary agency opens up in the non-essential elements of the narrative only to close once again. What the hell did I write here? Only to once again close. Okay, I see. Typo. Only to once again close to ensure that the plot follows a more or less predetermined route. Such a structure ultimately represents railroading in my view, and is a violation of the contract of interactivity with the player. When the prioritization of a predetermined ultimate progression of events is given precedence over the prioritization of cause and effect, the GM has not given sufficient detail or agency to their non-player characters or setting to allow these entities to influence the progression of events in a sufficiently adjustable fashion. All this is to say that the literary value of a highly interactive narrative is defined by the consistency and clarity with which the motivations of non-player characters are defined, and the application of that consistency towards the aggregation of meaningful related motifs, such that meaningful themes can be given rise. That's me.
Nice.
Yeah, that is very nice. So, Drake wants on if there's time.
Okay. Yeah, Drake, come on in. Okay. Drake, come on in. We should be getting in a second, hopefully. Alrighty, and here we go.
Hey, you're a little late. I'm a little early. So, so you can read along.
Neff, you're click-clacking.
Oh, sorry.
Clickety-clacking, clacking.
I'm in the chat
There's
too.
the link
So.
for anybody who wants.
Okay.
That's what I'll be reading. This is a new one. I don't think even Neff has seen this one yet. I just tore this out of another thing I was writing, and basically I'm looking for a human check on it. Because while this may all seem pretty natural to me, it may not seem natural to others. The first chapter is going to need a bit more work because I'm hitting the classic Gendo Ikari problem of how does one get the teenager into the robot?
Yeah.
I like it.
Anyway, this is going to be from Phalanx. It's actually an excerpt from the second chapter.
You kidnapped them.
I'm tempted to. Because it basically comes off like a child abduction at the start. But anyway, this chapter 2, this is after their first major confrontation. And About a few weeks to a month have passed, and the characters are all planning on getting together to meet each other at various points. And at this point, Phoebe, who doesn't know any of the other characters yet, her sisters, Amber Crow, the police officer, Amber Crow, the basically the ice cream barista, Morgan Crow, the police officer, or Ophelia Crow, the college student. Phoebe is now going to meet Ophelia. Phoebe's 16. She's about to graduate this year of high school, a year early, and she's using it as an excuse to check out the campus where Ophelia is going and see if she likes it, and also getting a bit more interaction between the pilots of the phalanx suits. Fortunately, we're not really going to get into that, so I don't have to get much into those in order to understand where this is going. But one thing I kind of do have to mention is that the phalanx suits are kind of sympathetically piloted. They have some sentience on their own before the pilots get into them, or at least that's how it is right now. I may change that later. But without their pilots, they are only like just animals, barely sentient and only operating on instinct. It's when the pilots get in that they actually can use their weapons and whatnot. So that should get us up to speed for a Chapter 2 excerpt. Everybody ready?
Yep.
No.
Okay.
Wait another 10 minutes.
Here we go. Phoebe reclined in the passenger seat. Having left home as the sun barely crested the tree line, she half feigned a nap, with her body at rest while her mind was elsewhere. It was odd to see the tall pine trees appear so short compared to Golden Phalanx's height. It could make out the aged station wagon in the breaks between the trees, as it strode as stealthily as a two-story robot could. There was no telling when some anomaly would attack, and it had to stay close by. Phoebe barely had a say in it. She wasn't in control at this point, but it was following her on its own, as if its AI had been coded along the lines of a clingy golden retriever. Someone was always watching out for her. With a whisper and a yellow banded wristband she wore higher up on her forearm, concealed up the sleeve of her light spring jacket, it would roar to life and be by her side in seconds. Better to have and not need than to need and not have, but not a day went by since that first incident that Phoebe didn't whisper a prayer under her breath that it wouldn't come to that. When the vision of another phalanx's highly reflective green hull appeared in her mind, it occurred to Phoebe that Golden Phalanx might have a slightly harder job blending into the verdant foliage than its peer, Emerald Phalanx. By the time the sun would reach its zenith, the phalanxes were going to need as much shade as they could to stay hidden, lest they shine like cars in a sunny parking lot. Emerald Phalanx had knelt on the ground and sat perfectly still, as if there wasn't even any power flowing through it. As Golden Phalanx approached, a few birds perched on its surface scattered. Who knew how long Emerald Phalanx had remained in this spot, dormant and unused? Phoebe was relieved at the thought that no anomalies had the audacity to attack her elder sister here. Near to its elder, Golden Phalanx took a knee and focused onto a gap between the tree branches, out over the valley where the campus resided. If one were to make a brochure to depict the campus as idyllic beyond any prospective student's wildest dreams, one likely couldn't do much better than a vision shared only between Phoebe and her metal guardian. The entire campus was built into the slant of a hill. Rather than leveling off large areas, stairwells ran up and down the facility. Buildings were built at different levels of elevation, with such careful planning that the higher floors could be connected by covered bridges, perfect for inclement weather and the disabled student body. Construction scaffolding climbed up the side of one building, allowing what must have been a fleet of artists to paint a mural of what at a distance seemed like a bright blue sky filled with potential. Reach your potential at Aurora Peaks Community College, an artful brochure might have said. Having gotten this close to the campus, Phoebe began to stir in the passenger seat. Her eyes cracked open as the humble family station wagon took the exit. The road wrapped around thick woods before spilling into a living advertisement of meticulously designed wonder. Trees were planted in the median between the two halves of the road, each one standing exactly as tall as the others. The station wagon drove through the shade of the larger overhanging trees on either side. Phoebe imagined what the scenery would look like in autumn, should she choose to attend here. "Heads up, kiddo, we're almost here," Phoebe's dad announced, not realizing Phoebe had already woken up. "I'm up," Phoebe said back, her voice cracking into more of a groan. It was still early, despite her mind racing all over the place, and in more ways than one. She had not had much to say yet. As the station wagon circled the outermost edges of the campus, parent and daughter went over their plans for the day. Phoebe's dad was going to head to the admissions office to settle as much of the administrative side of potential enrollment as he could. While he did that, Phoebe had other plans. Though mentioning the detailed specifications of the phalanxes was obviously forbidden, Phoebe never made any efforts to hide Ophelia or other half-sisters from her parents, nor even their blood relation. As far as her dad knew, Phoebe was wisely networking through every contact she had available. There was no need to disclose that Officer Morgan suggested that Phoebe get to know the rest of her siblings for team-building purposes. Day planning gave way to small talk before long. "So, what's Ophelia like?" Phoebe's dad asked. Phoebe shrugged her shoulders. She seemed nice. Quiet, but nice. Phoebe's dad hummed to himself in morose thought, as if choosing his words carefully. He dismissed the sudden tension with a chuckle. "Beats the alternative, I guess. Your mom could tell you about the stories of my college days." Did Phoebe's dad know more than he was letting on? No, not about his collegiate hijinks. Didn't Officer Crow basically say that no one was supposed to know anything about Phoebe's past? Morgan. She wasn't getting any more used to that. "Scene break?" Phoebe double-checked the dorm number against a text on her phone. She held a loosely knuckled hand over the door, as by her phone's estimation, she was still a few minutes early. As she decided whether to knock or not, she heard a muted alarm go off on the other side of the door. This was followed by the sound of toppling piles of random clutter, all without a single voice. A moment later, the deadbolt unlocked, and the door cracked open a few inches. It was prevented from opening further by a chain guard. A simple green eye peeked out from the dim room inside. "Can you give me a minute?" Phoebe didn't know how to respond beyond a nod, and the door closed again. The deadbolt audibly latched back into place. Of the other three pilots, Ophelia was by far the slowest to make an impression compared to her more boisterous older sisters. Or perhaps their older sisters would have been more accurate. What did Phoebe expect? Milk and cookies? Thanksgiving dinner? Ophelia was just a college student. Everybody knows the stereotype of college students and instant noodles. For too much longer, the deadbolt thudded unlocked again. Ophelia disconnected the chain and finally cracked open her door, but not much further. Ophelia peeked out, wearing a dull gray sweatpants and a plain white t-shirt that straddled the line of being too big, with the head hole large enough to expose a single collarbone. "You can come in now." Phoebe silently accepted the invitation and entered. As soon as she had gotten in, Ophelia closed the door back up again, bolted it shut, and reapplied the chain guard. Phoebe tried not to mention the smell of the place, musty and dull. It didn't seem like a girl's dorm at all, though it wasn't as if Phoebe could imagine a guy living like this either. Thick fabric curtains all but eliminated the light that would have entered through the one window at the other end of the room, directly opposite the door. The only lights were from some dim 60-watt bulbs and a few different small lamps scattered about. There was one on the kitchen counter, one sitting on a chair, and one on a nightstand in the distant corner next to a hastily made bed. Only the lattermost of these light fixtures looked like it hadn't been thrown in its place very recently, as to poorly disguise the glorified apartment like someplace that looked lived in. Ophelia went directly for an open box of granola bars on the kitchen counter right next to the door, probably placed there so she could grab one on her way out. Admittedly, that was a pretty clever idea, but if the three other empty boxes situated next to the one Ophelia grabbed were any indication, the system was already starting to show some limitations. "I have plenty of reserve if you want something to eat. Don't mind the lack of variety, though." Ophelia held up the box of breakfast bars as if to offer her guest one. "Want one?" "Oh, that's okay for now. I had a big breakfast on my way out," Phoebe excused herself. "Suit yourself," Ophelia responded, grabbing a bar for herself. She wasted no time in tearing into it, as if she hadn't eaten in a long while. With a hand still holding her already half-eaten breakfast, Ophelia gestured to the fridge. You can check what food I've got, see if there's anything in there you want for later. I don't have much, but you'll see. In part not to be rude by rejecting her host's invitation, and in part to satisfy an increasingly morbid curiosity, Phoebe went to check the fridge. She cracked the unit open gently. The door hinge seemed a little on the loose side. The light in the fridge washed over the contents, overpowering all other lights in the room easily. Aside from a few resealed and likely refilled bottles of water, there were carrots. Lots and lots of carrots. Short carrots in bags, long carrots awaiting peeling, carrots everywhere. Some of the bigger carrots had begun to sprout roots, a behavior that Phoebe had only ever heard of happening before. Given the well-known connection between carrots and night vision, Phoebe was beginning to understand why Ophelia kept the lights dim. The strangest thing was the lack of variety. Instead of lettuce, carrots. Instead of tomatoes, carrots. Phoebe was no stranger to eating her veggies, but this was a bit much even for her standards. They're indestructible. Phoebe was startled at Ophelia suddenly looking over her shoulder. Apparently Phoebe's inquiry was far more transparent than she intended. As Phoebe backed away from the fridge, Ophelia grabbed a carrot out of one of the open, half-empty bags. With a masterful gesture born of routine, Ophelia went at the carrot with a vegetable peeler she had in her other hand. It seemed to only take a few sweeps to complete the peeling, though Phoebe couldn't keep track of all the hand movements all that well. It's not that I don't like other foods. It's just that other foods just don't work out as well. Lettuce wilts, tomatoes bruise, eggs rot, milk curdles, meat spoils. But carrots. Ophelia whisked on the cold water to quickly rinse the carrot. The water only seemed to run for a second as she whipped the carrot under the dousing stream. Finished her task, but only seemed to take a few seconds. Ophelia leaned back against the countertop. She took a bite of it while twirling the vegetable peeler in between her fingers before practically driving it into the silverware collector on a nearby drying rack. She didn't even have to turn to face it. Carrots are indestructible. Phoebe couldn't help but to literally applaud the display. Hey, you should come over to my place sometime. I've never seen anybody peel carrots that fast before. Maybe my mom can show you some of her recipes. Ophelia walked right past her. It's nothing special. It's just living. Is this what you call living? Of course, Phoebe only thought that in response as she dug through her backpack. There wasn't much in the way of dining furniture, like large tables in the dorm, or even coffee tables. In its place, Phoebe stood at the widest, clear kitchen countertop and spread out a folded map of the university. Fortunately, the map was only about the size of 4 standard pieces of printer paper, but that made it too cumbersome to open the whole thing up anywhere. So, what are you doing now? Ophelia asked, looking over Phoebe's shoulder. Planning out where I want to go, Phoebe replied, already scanning the map with a highlighter in hand, circling key locations. Figure the best way to plan my route for the day is to do so preemptively. It's better than trying to bounce around campus till I see something interesting. How come? Saves time. For what? Phoebe turned back the sheer peculiarity of the question. After another quick spurt of the faucet, Ophelia turned around with another freshly peeled carrot. Phoebe hardly noticed. Ophelia wasn't kidding about the carrots, apparently. What do you save time for? Homework? Sleeping? Ophelia theorized aloud. She took a shallow bite from the fat end of her current carrot and finished it quickly. I have more than enough time. Don't worry about wasting it. Phoebe scanned the dorm. No television, no posters, no trace of any manner of hobby. There wasn't even a computer, gaming or otherwise. She wished that Ophelia had something lying around to get some kind of bearing as to what kind of stuff Ophelia liked, even if it was just a toy or stuffed animal. What do you do for fun around here? Ophelia seemed to ponder the question with genuine effort. She folded her arms and stared up at the ceiling as she leaned back against the fridge. After sufficient pondering, she tossed her carrot in the air and caught it with the uneaten short end up. She went to Phoebe's map of the campus and used her carrot as a pointer. Most of the campus on the map was situated around a few different staircases leading down the hill. At the top and bottom of the staircases were paved-out plazas with the occasional parasol-shaded circular table. Ophelia traced a line up the hill and circled the rough area above the topmost plaza, where there didn't seem to be anything of interest save for an empty field. It's around here. On days like today, when the sun is about to go down, I like to take a walk up here. Phoebe's eyes finally lit up as her imagination ran away with different ideas. Apparently, even Ophelia was a normal girl with normal interests after all, even if they were simple interests. So, you like watching the sunset, taking in the scenery? Do you take pictures? Do you meditate? Do you do yoga? Or do you just like being one with nature? Ophelia glanced up at Phoebe, probably seeing her younger sister's beaming expression, and then looked back down at the map. It's not exactly like you're thinking. Can I come with you? Ophelia stared straight at Phoebe for a second. How long were you planning to stay? Don't worry, I thought this might happen, Phoebe responded, pulling out her smartphone and immediately starting to text. I looked up the bus lines that come by campus. Plus, I got an app with the live updated bus schedules. I'll just take the bus home. Hang on, just let me tell Dad. Ophelia didn't seem to react at all to that comment, leaving Phoebe more than enough time to drop in a heart emoticon at the end of her text, humming the whole time. Phoebe put her phone back in her coat pocket and picked up the highlighter. Not only did she circle the rough area that Ophelia pointed out, but she had the flourish of a full-blown smiley face. I'm sure it'll be great. Phoebe looked back up at Ophelia, who stared back at Phoebe as if she hadn't moved in the past minute. Oh, Ophelia looked off to the side. You meant your dad, of course. And that's that.
Woo!
Yay!
Hopefully I'll get an
Chapter
Amber one written pretty soon.
Chapter 2.
Yep.
Nice. I like it.
Hopefully this is a get a feel for the characterization before the giant robots come out. That way the giant robot fights have a bit more context than they normally would.
That was very good.
But becoming better. Were you on for, or were you, did you ever get a chance to see that one tutoring stream where I was talking about phalanx?
I don't believe so. I don't think I've caught any of the tutoring streams.
Yeah, well, I did two. The second one, the more recent one,
yes?
phalanx. Huh?
They're during weekdays, yes?
Thursday.
Yeah, I have worked
Okay.
on work days.
Well, if you're curious as to more about what I'm going on about, you can always reference those.
Gotcha.
Because I imagine there's going to be some questions in there. Like,
Okay.
had you read this normally, it probably would have seemed less weird that Phoebe was essentially astral projecting into Golden Phalanx as it was following her.
No, that part basically made sense to me.
Okay, good.
I'm just going to be reading something funny. From, I think, like 3/4 into Young Dragonlord. So, I hope that y'all read it at some point, since it is currently out on Amazon.
Nice.
Hello. Oh, Nick Brown. Good to see you. See you.
General Brown, you are a bold one.
Hello there. General Kenobi, you are a bold one.
That's always funny.
Yeah. Your lightsabers will make an excellent addition to my collection.
I have been trained in the art of literature by the great Lord Dunn.
I greatly appreciate that. Thank you for the plug. Or at least thank you for the endorsement, I suppose. I'm still finding... I lost my place on my phone, so I'm just trying to let a really long document load up on my computer. Let's see.
There's a plug-in for Grievous?
Might be. I might need to find like a. What is it? Find a good clip of Grievous to use, since he's got some good quotes, especially in Revenge of the Sith.
My favorite quote is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it really contributes to the theming of the narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. What is the situation, Captain?
Why were you reading or trying to do a Grievous voice?
Grievous voice.
Ah,
I'm
By
still
far, I think the most terrifying of the antagonists for the prequel trilogy was Grievous.
See, what you didn't know is that coughing sound was some of the droids' names, so he was actually just calling them.
Funny.
It's explained in the Expanded Universe books.
So is it like a droid-to-droid mating call or something?
man, it's a
Something
good
like
thing
that.
I mute out all my coughs or I'd get all the toasters hot.
It's so annoying. Since at least like I know like the word count, but it's like currently at like 30. Still loading. So stupid. My computer is slow.
Have you tried switching from Walmart internet to Target internet?
Firefox versus Chrome. I just always use Chrome. It just takes a while for Google Docs to load up like page by page.
Oh, I was
I've
making the
never
joke
had
that
that.
you were using your computer at Walmart.
I've never had a problem with that, actually.
Opera is the new Chrome anyway.
Really? I'll have to
I use the
switch there.
new Microsoft Edge.
I'll have to figure out a way to migrate all my bookmarks and passwords over there.
I don't actually. Just making sure everyone knows that.
Yeah, I joke with my brothers that I'm not a big fan of Microsoft Edge because I'm worried he's going to steal my girlfriend, Microsoft Lita. But nobody's going to get that reference.
Yeah, I don't like Microsoft Edge or its predecessor. As soon as I found out about Firefox, I migrated over to Firefox instead. And now I use two different browsers because Space Battles Forum doesn't allow me to use the goddamn what's that thing? Yeah. So I have to use two. One for Space Battles because Space Battles is just dumb.
Cool. Alrighty, I am ready.
Okay.
Okay. The winter's chill didn't seem to touch Lila as she cuddled up against Aemond on her seat just outside of camp. He seemed to exude heat as if he were a dragon himself. Aemond had changed a great deal since she'd last seen him. The fresh-faced look he had was gone, replaced by lean hardness. His eyes were different, even more somber, if that was possible. His voice was more raspy. Still nice, but it sounded as if he severely damaged his throat. "Did you happen to bring your guitar with you?" she asked. "It seems like a long time ago since I heard you sing." "Yeah, a lifetime." Aemond absently stroked her tummy. Normally she didn't like people touching her belly, but there was such tenderness in Aemond's touch that she felt totally comfortable. Also, she liked the way it felt when the baby seemed to calm down as if in response to her father's touch. "Well," Lila poked him aside, "do you have it or not?" No, I had to leave that behind." Aemond sounded regretful. "I'm probably never going to see that thing again." "Well, glad to hear I wasn't the only thing you left behind," Lila said dryly. "I thought I had thoroughly apologized for that," Aemond sighed. "I know. I'm just going to hold it over you for a little while." Lila smiled and kissed him. The young prince eagerly reciprocated, but he made sure to be gentle with her as he kissed her back. "If you had asked me to come, I would have went away with you in a heartbeat if I wasn't pregnant," Lila said quietly. "I wanted to." Aemond held her close. "I wanted to so bad." "I know." Lila took a breath and leaned her head against his shoulder. "That night was hard. I was so scared for you. I wasn't sure if our baby would grow up with a father. So there was that. Still floors me that I'm actually going to raise our child," Aemond said quietly, delicately stroking her stomach. I thought I would have to never ever get to raise her, or really be around her in a meaningful way. We both thought that when she was conceived." Lila shrugged. "Your first time, I remember." "Yeah, what a fool I made of myself," Aemond chuckled. "You were so confident and together while I was nervous that I wouldn't get it right." "I was pretty nervous too," she admitted, "though probably for different reasons than you were nervous." "I think that getting caught was pretty high on our list of things to be scared about," Aemond said quietly. As likely as it was, as unlikely as it was, considering where we were when we did it. "Someone might have heard you," Lila poked him. "You were pretty loud." "Yeah, I was," Aemond stroked her head, and "it was great. Wonderful, in fact. You mentioned that several times, in fact." Lila laced her hands in his. "It was okay for me, too." "Boy or girl?" Aemond asked. It's a girl," Lila said quietly, "but if it's a boy, I would like you to pick the name." "Perion," Aemond said automatically. "It was my older brother's name. If it is a boy, I would like him to be Arian." "The brother whose sword you asked me to steal for you." Lila nodded. "And if it's a girl, I'd like to name her Megara, after your dragon." "Sod you, no!" Vagar's remark was punctuated by the dragon herself leaning her head down to glare at Lila. "You are not naming some runt baby after me. I don't care if it's your runt baby, Aemond." "It's different enough," Lila remarked. "An M instead of a V and adding an ace. It works." Silence. "I'll have to see the baby," Vagar said finally. "If I'm impressed with her, fine." "Glad you agree," Lila remarked, adding a significant amount of sarcasm. "We greatly appreciate your permission and good sense." "What the hell did you do to deserve her, Aemond?" Agar asked, giving her an approving look. "I mean, I like you and everything, but she's way too witty for you." "Is she always like this?" Lila asked, reaching out and patting Vagar's head affectionately as she'd seen Aemond do. "She's really stepped up the sass since you got here." Aemond gave his dragon a baleful glare over her head. "I can't see why." "Because she gives me opportunity to tease you." Vagar nudged Lila's shoulder affectionately. "Besides, she flatters me. That's always going to win points." Gently, she looked down at Aemond's hand on Lila's body. "Why do you keep touching her stomach?" he asked. It's really strange, because I can feel the baby moving. Eamon shrugged. Weird. Vagar swished her tail. How did you meet anyway? Do you remember the stable boy story? Eamon asked. I remember everything, Eamon. Of course I remember the damn stable boy story, Vagar said impatiently. It wasn't that far off, at least the beginning of the story, Eamon explained, except she came to me. Aha. Vagar turned her massive red eye toward Lila. Explain yourself. Why did you go after him? What happened was rather complicated, Lila grimaced at the memory. I was arranged to marry Senred as part of an arranged betrothal based on my family supposedly having fertile women. He wanted to produce an heir, and I was the only one who hadn't been married off. So we got married, and after several months of trying, it was clear I wasn't going to have a child with him. So he started hurting me. Those months have been horrible. He'd beaten her every time her moon's blood had arrived. I got scared, so I turned to him. Why Amond? Vagar asked. It must have been... She seemed to be calculating. How long are humans pregnant for? Roughly 9 months, Lila explained. And to save you time, it was a little over a year ago when I took matters into my own hands. Damn, I love a good calculation in game. Vagar pouted mildly. Anyway, continue. I talked with her a few times, Aemon continued. We were both far from home, and I tried to be extra polite, mostly because I could relate, and she was the wife of the Crown Prince. And then she asked about my family, and we really connected. At least, I felt like we did. It was the fact that he was a good musician and storyteller that drew me to him, Lila stroked his hand. The first time we met was actually the day after I got to the capital. Senator had just taken me for his wife, and I was wandering the garden in order to clear my head. And I heard Aemon singing. Really? Vagar remarked, giving Aemon a stern look. I've heard you tell several stories, but I haven't heard you sing, you wanker. Yeah, because you never asked until now, when my voice has been destroyed. Absently, he rubbed at his throat where a few burn marks marred his skin. I hope that eventually I'll get it back, but I won't sing for a while. But when he did have his voice, it was lovely. Lila idly toyed with Aemon's long silver hair, and I liked his silver hair, so that was a big plus. Yeah, that was what stood out to me as well, Vagar agreed. Usually silver hair looks terrible on young humans, but he was pretty enough as he was to make it work. Thank you for your assessment of my physical features, Aemon said dryly. Hey, I probably wouldn't have let you steal me without that hair of yours. Vagar swished her tail. Anywhere. You're a little meat cute. Please expound. Aemon was sitting alone, playing a really happy song, probably trying to cope, and he'd been there for a year already and didn't have much fear and movement throughout the castle. Lila took up the story. I waited until he was finished before approaching, and then we started talking. How much older than Aemon are you? Vagar asked. Lila blushed in embarrassment. I was 3 years older than Aemon when I met him. Whoa, Vagar remarked. You must have been really good at mating. Aemon flushed, and Lila had to stifle a laugh. Vagar, you don't say stuff like that, he growled, cheeks bright red. Humans don't say things like that because you have dumb social structures, Vagar shrugged. I say whatever I please, when I please. It wasn't the fact that Aemon was good at mating, Lila explained, trying not to burst out laughing. Aemon blushed even harder. That made me like him, but it was actually the fact that he was kind, the fact that he was an outsider like me. Though his outsider status was a bit more significant than mine, but I liked him, and when I found out that he was one of 4 brothers, I knew that if I wanted to have children and not be thrown out of the palace after being labeled as burned, I needed to... She cut off, anticipating a crass remark from the dragon. Vagar remained silent, though there was an air of something about her. You might as well say it, Aemon remarked. I thought that people were polite and didn't talk about certain things. Vagar smiled wickedly. Or would you like me to put words in your lady's mouth so I can get a cheap laugh? Lila coughed to cover her chuckling. You boned, Vagar remarked dryly. Enough said. She couldn't take it. Holding her stomach, Lila laid back on the ground and burst out laughing, mostly at Eamon's beet red face. Yes, we boned. Lila gasped out as she wiped a tear from her eye. Was he good? Vagar asked eagerly. Vagar! Eamon said indignantly. Yes, he was, Lila said quickly, sitting up and patting his arm affectionately. He was very accommodating of me, which I appreciated. Good. I don't have to worry about my rider being a total wuss anymore, Vagar remarked, licking her lips. How'd you avoid getting caught? In his time in Morgul Castle, Eamon had found all of the castle's secret passages. Lila explained. So, while simmered away, we made love nearly every day until he returned. Whoa. Vagar gave Eamon an approving look. She must have liked you to come back for more. Should hope so. Eamon blushed, but he seemed amused. Lila and Simon kept me from going insane in there. After I got pregnant, we decided that we couldn't do anything that would cause suspicion about whose parent it was, so we decided to keep our distance for the sake of the baby, Lila put in. Gently, she squeezed Eamon's hand. But then, after you and Eamon and you left, I was pretty sad since I was sure I'd never see him again and that our baby would go up without a father. Then that rumor about the Eastern Army reached me, and I knew they were trying to hunt you down. They wouldn't have found me, Eamon said quietly. Thought about coming back for you after our baby was born, but it would make it far worse if I had sneaked in and stolen the heir to the throne. Doesn't matter now, Vagar remarked. We're all together. And now, abruptly, Eamon raised his hand, pointing toward the sun. Look. Fear sparked inside Lila. The shadow of something huge, darker than any passing cloud, passed across the blood-red sky far in the distance. Thanatos, she whispered. Eamon gave Vagar a look as he gently helped Lila to his feet. Well, looks like the fight has come to us, he remarked. I thought we'd lost her. Lila clutched at Eamon's hand tightly. Eamon, you can't fight him. He's too large to defeat. Even Vagar isn't more than 2/3 his size. I wish we had a choice, Eamon remarked, picking up his sword and buckling it around his waist. She's probably not alone either. Likely she's bringing along an army with her. He seemed to be working out the things in his head. We need to get you to safety, he said finally, but he raised his hand and Starla protested. There's a way that you can help by leaving. Lila frowned. What? I need you and someone else to fly that Kamal of yours northwest. As Eamon pointed. I can't use seeing stones to communicate with the Orc army. For all they know, we're doing fine. But if you can get a message to them, they'll double their pace and they'll bring 2 more dragons. What will you do? Lila asked, putting her hands on her hips. Staying here? Possibly dying in battle? Aiden wrapped his arms around her and held her close. She clutched at him, burying her face in his shoulder. I'd love to fly away with you, he whispered. But if I leave, she'll kill everyone in this army with ease using that monstrous dragon of hers. I have to be the one to protect them. I might not be a ruler, but I have a responsibility to shield them from our enemies. I just found you again, Lila whispered. I don't want to leave you again. I know. Eamon's voice broke slightly. Not a rare occurrence nowadays, but there seemed to be a hint of heartbreak in his tone. I love you so much. He tightened his grip. I love you too. She made her voice fierce. Kill that bitch. And that's the end.
Liking dragons is like an automatic for me, but I really like that dragon.
I gotta say, I like Vagar, the autistic dragon.
I love her. She's just so funny. I had to mute my mic because I was afraid I'd burst out laughing in the middle and no one would be able to hear you.
I think Dunn would have appreciated that.
I think it would have made things actually better, just allowing the pause. Us for
We boned, all
Maybe.
right.
what?
Yeah,
We
enough for being
boned,
polite.
all right.
Yeah.
A comment in an earlier part of the book was, "What, you're gonna make a crass remark?" Vagar is like, "Me? Make a crass comment? Perish the thought."
Are you being sarcastic? No, it's being sincere.
But yeah, if you structure characters properly and then just let them bounce off each other, you have comedy gold. But you
Yeah.
have to have the right kind of personality clashes to do that.
Yeah, especially with like his girlfriend, his baby mama there, who's laughing. His like the dragon that's acting like his very crass big sister.
So was that other dragon coming to attack Thanatos, or was that the
That's Thanatos. Yeah, he's a
Thanatos is a dragon?
he's a dragon. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, witty dialogue is some of the best comedy ever.
You are sod. You know, you are not naming a runt baby after me. I don't care if it's your runt baby.
I think
Yeah.
that's kind of a clever play to be offended that someone would name their kid after you.
Of course, that was probably Vagar being sarcastic.
Oh no, that was genuine.
That was genuine. It sounded like it would be sarcastic, and she was just saying it to get a rise out of them.
Oh, she's got a lot of pride in her image.
I wonder about dragon culture, or maybe it's just Vagar culture.
Maybe.
Well, Vagar's kind of weird because she actually was actually like left the nest. I actually put in a bit of her mother couldn't tell her any more or that she couldn't leave since she'd left. Or something like that. And she just gets captured by humans and she just stays with humans for a couple of decades.
She couldn't get away, or didn't care to, or what?
She just couldn't get away. She was relatively young, and they just kept increasing the chain size and density on her.
I was thinking it was kind of like Ryuk from Death Note, where he just stayed because he thought it was interesting.
Yeah,
Because he
you
was
read
bored.
an earlier piece of the book, didn't you?
Yes, I read the part where they got away.
Mm-hmm. Thought so.
And yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that part.
Yeah.
Was that Thanatos as well?
No, Thanatos. So those were Kamal. They're basically like wyverns or fell beasts from Lord of the Rings, where they're just big flying lizards. They don't breathe fire, and their scales aren't as thick as a dragon's. Thanatos is somebody that's introduced a little bit later in the book. His rider is a king who comes in to sweep in and take the throne with his dragons, and the then somebody else who's a little bit more badly intentioned kills the king and steals his dragon through dark magic. And now Aemond has to worry about fighting a dragon that's bigger than his.
Yeah, that would be hard, shall we say.
Yeah, especially when this dragon breathes ice.
Yikes.
Hmm.
Ice breath.
Yeah. Yeah, it's blue fire, and it basically will coat anything that it touches. And have you seen How to Train Your Dragon 2?
Yes, actually, I
Yes.
have.
Imagine the Bewilder Beast breath, only it's blue flame.
Nice.
Where it's the breath from the Ice Titan in Hercules. That's kind of how Thanos.
Yeah.
It's
So
like
it's
Rimscale
Endothermic.
Dragon from Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I haven't seen that particular card, but I know what I can picture it. I need to find that dragon. I'm a big MTG fan. But yeah.
My favorite rendition of dragons so far is that they're all just basically cats.
Done. You have a picture of Soren Markov as your avatar. I think people can tell that you're a Magic the Gathering fan.
Yeah.
It's like saying to me, "Wait, you like lifting weights?"
I like giant robots.
We're asking Shiny if he likes if he likes Star Trek and Nap if
Star
she likes anime.
Wars. It's kind of obvious with that helmet of his.
Yeah.
A stormtrooper. He must like Stargate.
Yeah, he's got that picture of Geordi as his profile picture.
Yeah, just like it's obvious that I'm
Geordi
really into
LaForge.
anime.
Yep.
None of us are all that subtle.
No.
So, we have a little bit of time. So I was curious to ask the chat a question. Would you like to do a Q&A for the next 20 minutes or so? Or would you rather have a Q&A for 20 minutes, or kind of more just a discussion of how each of us constructs characters?
Ooh. Oh, that second one I could go on about for a bit.
Yeah, a little bit. It would be fun though.
Yeah, we might. Yeah, I think that since it's not talking about a lot of concepts of creating characters, it's just our personal process. It won't take all that long.
I just steal mine from better writers.
I think okay. Mark in 3D so far is he's voting for second one. Okay. Let me think. I think with Valkar Perion, I kind of created him from scratch in a lot of ways, because I initially had him basically I got the idea, at least the base concept, from the board game The Lost Legion Mage Knight expansion, where he was this general who vanishes for several years or several centuries in Valkar's case, and then comes back with a large army, and that includes dragons and kind of basically Urukai, but I called them Khal instead. So initially I kind of had it so that he is like the Alexander the Great. He's a military prodigy. He doesn't really have that, didn't initially have that much complexity, but then I realized I need to make it so that his personal failures, the few that he has had, have really shaped his life, and that success has ultimately ruined him as a person because he is constantly scared of failure. He's also scared of losing his mind because a lot of his memories are missing, or they just don't make sense. Like in the first book, he has this flashback where he kills a bunch of guys with a sword when he's 12 or something. And initially, I wrote that as that's what happened. But then I realized that's actually really stupid. That makes no sense at all. I don't care if he's a mage. This is stupid. But then I realized, wait, I can utilize the fact that this makes no sense and is stupid and lampshade it to bring up something later of what bring up in the reader's head. Wait, what actually happened here?
Yeah, you can do that with a lot of situations that you write. You just have to realize that you can do that instead of going, no, this is stupid, let me rewrite it to something different. Because a lot of people will go for the, this is dumb, I should rewrite this, instead of going, I can use this for something later.
Instead of saying, this is dumb, I should redo this. Or, hang on, that wasn't the proper phrasing.
Well, I think it was like my mom, when she was reading it, kind of pointed out it doesn't make much sense. And I'm like, okay, well, what if I kind of draw attention to the fact that it doesn't make sense and make it a part of Valkar's character that he's slowly losing his memories? And that he just doesn't remember much besides battles. And that just he's scared of like losing his mind, and whenever he like has another memory, he'll write it in his paper, write in a book or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With Kaya Ashbringer, I must admit I was very influenced by Dalinar Kholin from the Stormlight Archive when I was writing her. I had just barely finished with Oathbringer, and I was like, that is one of the best character arcs I have ever seen. I want to do something like that. And I just wanted to try and kind of come up with a different like system that would bring her up. And I also thought, like, within this world that I created, why not try some interesting things with history that I haven't seen in a book before, like the Native American re-education program, where Native American kids were raised with white people, and just use that with orc children who are turned into humans.
Yeah, you get the most interesting ideas just by looking at history that's not used.
Yeah.
I would say, so sorry, go ahead.
Don't go for it. Yeah.
I would say, especially with the way that I've been writing lately, which is highly utilitarian writing for the purposes of fleshing out an interactive environment. One of the biggest things that I have to do, one of the base foundational things that I have to do is ask, what is there to want, what is there to need, and what kind of person would want that or need that, and why can't they have it?
Yeah.
And if there's any, and one of the primary means by which they can't have it is that there's an intersection between the goals of two or more groups or characters.
We have Halo and Crow.
Nice. Hey guys.
I think I definitely agree with that. Like, I actually constructed Kaya Ashbringer as somebody who like has done a lot of bad stuff, and she's trying to drown her memories out in drink. But the issue is
what, she can't get drunk?
Well, no, she can get drunk. She's just got a conscience in the form of the ghost of the protagonist from the previous book. Kind of what I kind of like. I guess I guess my refutation of Luke, because
Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, at the end within Last Jedi, because this. I created Brand Sunraiser, and made him a hero in the third book, and then I made it so that he in the time kind of between the prologue of the fourth book and the first chapter of the fourth book, what he does is he tries his best to maintain peace with the orcs and the Uru and the humans, and he ultimately fails. But one of the things that he does is he uses a card that costs him so much of his energy that he has to go into a coma for centuries, and he's still not out of that coma when his spirit kind of starts wandering, and he hooks onto this one young lady, and he's with her throughout most of her life, and he's having to see her go from like a noble revolutionary who executes a very bad king and takes the throne herself to a depressed drunk who's just hunting for this one person to kill, and she just can't manage it. And he's just sad that she's kind of sunk to that low. So
Yeah, I'd be sad too.
yeah.
One of the basest questions that one has to ask when constructing characters is, why can't they have what they want? Because otherwise you tend to get Mary Sue characters or Gary Stu type characters, or even if they're not particularly talented, the absence of conflict tends to make them boring, regardless of whether they have all the abilities or none of them.
What if they don't know what they want yet? Like they're really young. Like they like
then that's why they can't have it.
Because they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But
so it's more of a question of figuring out what it is that they want than actually acquiring it.
Well, then what they want is a sense of purpose.
Yeah, that fits very well.
Because they're young and don't have the mental faculties and the life experience to have done it yet.
Yeah. And that's the problem with working with younger characters. You sometimes gotta... You may know what they actually want, but writing them as if they don't might be kind of hard.
Also, it's kind of a little bit of a trope to have young people not know what they want on average. It's very rare to see like kind of go-getter younger characters in fiction.
Yeah.
You mean it's rare for the characters to know what they want at that age or not to?
Yeah. It's rare that they know what they want. I think one of the major characters in fiction that I know that kind of goes after something with everything she's got is actually Egwene Elvira in The Wheel of Time, where she just wants to know everything and wants to kind of see the world outside and her little village. So kind of like Belle with superpowers in a way, because she earns how to use magic and slowly becomes a really powerful person in her own right. But it's after lots and lots of work and really bad things happening to her.
Yeah, I usually... Go ahead, Neff.
Another example of a character that, while he might not know what he wants to do with his life, he does know one of the things he wants, and he wants to have his wife with him. And that's Kirito from Sword Art Online. Because he goes to quite the lengths to save his girlfriend. In fact, saving his girlfriend is the entire plot of the second half of the first season. And he's saving her from her... I don't want to call him her fiancé, because that's not what he is. He's...
her suitor, essentially?
Well, he wants to be her suitor, but he's more of well, her father sees him as a second son. So,
That's a good question. What do you do with a character once he/she? Kind of
Was
depends.
what they got what they really wanted? Were they happy with it?
That would be called the denouement.
Yeah, usually
Yeah.
that's at the end of the story.
And then if you're doing a continuation of that and it's separate, like in a separate book or whatever it is, then
yes, Wise Wolf. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
then what they want is either taken away from them or they want something else, or there's a bunch of different things. They need to want something new, or need to
Yeah.
have another want, whether it's the same want and they can't have it anymore or something like that.
Yeah. One of the things that really, really annoys me is that Hollywood, I want to call it Hollyweird because it's Hollyweird now, but well, the writers in Hollywood don't seem to know how to write a healthy relationship anymore. So at the end of one season, they resolve the will they, won't they, and then at the start of this next season, the couple is no longer a couple.
Or it's
I hate
reset and they have to start over?
Yeah, basically. Either that or they're on the rocks. And it's just, guys, a healthy relationship, people in a healthy relationship do argue. That does not mean that their relationship might be breaking down.
I have a
It's
sneaky
the sign of
suspicion. Go ahead.
It's the sign of a healthy relationship that they have arguments. Because nobody's going to agree 100% of the time. Or even 50% of the time.
I would say the generalization of that problem is that they don't know how to continue the progression of those characters without reverting back to what it was that they think defines them, and they think the pursuit of that relationship is what defined them, as opposed to who the person is, and the pursuit is simply an outcropping of that.
Yeah, I do understand that's what it is. It's just...
I gotta head out quickly.
Okay.
Okay.
I apologize for being so abrupt.
Oh no, you're fine. I'm probably gonna wrap the stream up. I gotta get some stuff. We've been going for like an hour and a half. It's pretty nice and digestible. And I'd love to kind of talk about like constructing characters another time. I know that the next stream is going to be chatting about like climactic duels, but maybe we can talk about like what goes into character work, since usually the best part of like a duel is having two well-developed characters in there.
Yep.
And we might
It is.
And we might even
All right. You'll have to catch me up later. I gotta hop off like right now.
All right, see ya.
All right, see ya. Thanks for having me.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah.
It's great having you.
See you.
Well, two characters having a climactic duel. I'll be there for obvious reasons.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you gave one of the main cast what they want before the story is over, what do you do with them then? Depends on what it is, and depends at what point in the story you give it.
Yeah.
Because
did they want what they wanted in order to get something else? Is there a step 2?
There might be.
It could just be like how they use what they want.
Yeah. Let's see.
Or do they lose it dramatically, like Batman?
Yeah, or like I guess an example might be like you kind of have a bait and switch, like Edge of Tomorrow. I think is one of the best sci-fi action movies I've ever seen in my life, because it makes a whole lot of sense how it's constructed. Like, the aliens are basically able to, when they die, they go back in time. That's why they're always able to win.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, one such example that I can think of for something like that is at the end of the first arc of Sword Art Online, they all get to go home, except for 300 people, including the girlfriend, and so his want changes. So here, those want changes from I want to get home, so I want to end the game so that I can be with her in the real world, to my girlfriend's been kidnapped. Now I have to go save her. And then after that, he gets contracted by a government worker because people have been dying strangely in a different game, and they just can't figure out what the hell is going on. So he's basically the boots on the ground trying to figure that out.
Well, that's all the time that we have for today. I have to thank my guests for coming on. Thank you, Brent Discord. Good luck with what you need to do. Thank you, Neff Champion and Drake the Duelist. I am very excited to chat about climactic duels on Tuesday. That's going to be quite fun. I am very excited.
Very fun.
Yes. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming along. Hopefully you rewatch the stream, and hopefully you have some fun with it. We'll also be talking more about character stuff, and if you would like to chat with me more, the link to the Discord is in the link to the Discord is in this server below. If you would like to come and join and chat with us, get help from other writers, stuff like that.
Can you give me a moment to answer something? Because Space Junk is wondering if SAO is still going on. Yes, it's still going on. They are airing the second half of what is going to be the last of the last season, I think. Yeah. So they are posting episodes right now. So yeah, it's still going on. But it's the one arc that I know very, very little about because I just couldn't get very far in the first book. I had to put it down. So, yeah, sorry about that, Don.
Of course, no problem. Alrighty. Well, it has been fun. And yes, Dr. Crow, the dude abides. Yes, sure. Fanfic writers, we have multiple fanfic writers.
I'm a fanfic writer. You're very welcome to come on.
Yes, of course. Just anybody who wants to come on and chat about writing, maybe even help others that maybe have you had a fall, like a troubleshooting problem that you needed to overcome, but somebody else is maybe struggling with. You can totally come on and help that person out, since sometimes your experiences will be able to help that person.
I know that I've asked multiple times when I've been having trouble writing a scene or two or three or the entire chapter. So, happy wolf sounds! Yay!
We are glad to have you. We are very, very happy to have you. Anyway, And also, like, for in terms of like announcements to new people, how we're going to work things, just so everybody is aware. The schedule is going to be. I'll also announce this on Tuesday at the very beginning. Is Tuesdays we have our video response / topic of writing. For the next few weeks, we're going to be doing generalized writing topics. On Thursdays, we do either I do tutoring or another video topic stream. We just barely did a stream about like talking about battles in sci-fi, and we were able to get some really good mileage out of that one. I was very happy with how that one turned out.
Yep, that was fun.
Yep. And then on Saturdays we have a special stream. We have a special stream just for the writers in the Discord who want to show off their work, get feedback. It's on Saturdays at 2 or 3 usually. Yes. Yes, you can be on it. We're always happy to have you, Dr. Crow.
Magic is a fun topic too.
Yes, we'll have to do that. Maybe we'll do that We'll do that the Tuesday after next.
Okay.
Chat about magic, how it works. Maybe we'll even like watch a couple of videos like about hard magic versus soft magic.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about hard magic systems versus soft magic systems if we're going to talk magic.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. I think that should be everything we have for today. Thank you to all of the readers. So I think that I am going to close this stream out now. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to everybody who's currently flooding the Discord. I appreciate that. And I am going to say goodbye until next time and see you in the Discord.
Bye,
Later.
guys.